Welcome to a solo episode of the Patio Partner Podcast. This week's been a busy one here in the farm in the Terra Level Executive Suite. I had some consulting work to do with a set of clients in China. I have been spending most of my time, though, working on QuickBooks and closing out the books for a business, a farm, my consulting work. And I tell you what, that just taxes your brain. I've been sitting here at the computer trying to get through these books. There's one thing that's been in my brain, and it's a phone call I got earlier this week. It started with a text message from a young friend of mine who I did not know is part of the unemployed army that includes me, frankly. Started with a text message saying, "Hey, I need your mentorship." I thought, oh, hey, okay, I'll call him. So I got caught up, got a place where I could quit, and I called him. And he shared with me that he was at a crossroads. And I think a lot of us in agriculture, and particularly those with advanced degrees, whether it's a master's or certificates or doctorates or professional degrees in agriculture, face this at times. And the crossroads he was at is, I'm getting comfortable here. My parents are here. My grandparents are here. My siblings are here. I have a house here. So this is home, and this is kind of where I want to be. But I don't have a job. Prospects are in his field are pretty good, but still he doesn't have one. And he happened to reach out to land-grant university on a whim. When he reached out to this university and said that he might be interested in coming back to grad school with the thought of this would be something that I could get through spring semester, summer semester, and then I'll start in the fall. The university department, the professor that he spoke to, grabbed a hold of him like a train marker coonhound on a raccoon and would not let go. The department went to the graduate school and got some dispensation so that this young man can go to school and start this coming Monday. They waived the graduate school application deadline and said, get here Monday and you will start your PhD program. Now, for a young man that's in his late 20s, that has a life, he has a mortgage, and friends, that has to be a scary situation because he's just getting comfortable. And unlike me, who went through, I did my undergrad, went right into my master's, right into my PhD, he has a thing to think about. So he called me and we talked about it. And he said, I need your advice. What should I do? And I kind of threw him for a loop. And and it's coming from my interactions with you, my audience, and the guests I've had. And it's developing my interviewing skills and questioning skills. Instead of laying out my view of the pros and cons of making this decision, I asked him if he would sell me on why he should not go. And that silence you're hearing now is the same silence I heard when I asked that question. And the next words out of his mouth were, man, that's a good question. And it is. Because it presented this decision in a different light. And it came down to, and his words were, well, I guess the only thing I got that I shouldn't do it is my family and being comfortable here. So we went around our conversation, and it was one of those days where the sun was out and it was a little sunny, so I was actually on the patio. So I was helping him ponder while I was sitting on the patio. And we went through it. talked about we have enough contacts, or he has enough contacts, that finding a place to stay would be no big deal in a short term. And in fact, he had an old roommate that had offered a room already. And I threw out a challenge to him that he is in an enviable position compared to somebody like me that went straight through for my graduate degrees, because he has those things that I didn't have when I was starting my PhD. Now, I had the classwork, and I had the intellect to understand the classwork, and I was doing the research, and I was involved in the research and liked the research. But I didn't have the experience that this young man has. Now, I mentioned this young man has a mortgage. He has a house. He's developed into a working member of society. And I threw at him that if this position does turn into a teaching position down the road, that I, as a student looking at a syllabus or a biography for a professor, would go, "Ooh, Dr. So-and-so worked at this, and he did this, and he did this before he started his doctoral program." And I think that puts him in a powerful position to be able to teach at the post-secondary level, because he does have that experience. And the more I thought about that after our conversation with Thor, the more I thought that my suggestion for him to call his major professor and tell him he would be there on Monday was the right one. Now, I don't know the decision he made. I'm recording this on Thursday evening. I haven't reached out to him. He's got enough on his brain, regardless of a yes or no decision. This goes back to what we've talked about a lot in my circle on mentorship. And when I was talking to Casey Bradley about mentorship, one of my former supervisors, Dr. Stuart Galloway, reached out to talk about mentorship. We think about it in a formal sense. And they also think about it from a university level, and we're going to have a mentorship program. And Dr. Smith, we're going to have you work with these 4 students, and you're their mentor. Hey, that's great. I think that's awesome. Getting people access to networking early, to get access to people that are in the industry, people that have a little more experience, as you can tell by the gray in my beard. But there's something that is missing when you put it in a formal sense. It's almost like an assignment. I'm not downgrading those. We have to have those programs. But in this case, I've never formally been this young man's mentor. I've never sat down with him and said, "Well, young man, I'm your mentor." But I'm his mentor because I like the kid. And maybe it's because I have done a doctorate. I have written a dissertation. I did stand up and do the gauntlet with my major professors. Maybe it's just my experience in life was enough for him to call and say, "Hey, I need some advice." And I think back to that quote, and I've used this several times, but it doesn't make sense unless you think about it. A friend in need is a friend indeed. So what does that mean? I guess it means if you have a friend that is in need and reaches out to you, then you're a friend indeed. So think about that as you work with people for mentorship. Because you don't know when those interactions, those questions, those opportunities to influence somebody might come along. Now, for me, it was a January day, and I was immersed in QuickBooks and balancing checkbooks. It was in no position that I was just readily available to mentor. And there was nothing formal about this. It was just a conversation between 2 men. One that had experience and one that needed some advice. So, I'm going to end that here with talking about that mentorship. But I think about all the times that we have the opportunity to be a mentor. And sometimes I think we confuse the ability to interact with people, particularly when there's an age difference, on popularity and, oh, do you get along? Do you kind of have some fun with him? And I challenge anybody that's in my position. When somebody calls and says, hey, I got a question. Hey, I need some advice. Hey, can we talk? That you don't blow them off. That you take the time to chat with them. Because my conversation with this young man was, half an hour? And 10 minutes of that was just talking about stuff that had nothing to do with this decision. Because that's a pretty powerful compliment when somebody reaches out and asks you for advice. And I'm not even diving into the mental health issues that we might have in agriculture and the challenges that production agricultural personnel, whether it's a farmer or somebody that works for a farmer, might have with dealing with negative numbers like I have the last few days. I'm talking about when somebody just asks for, hey, what do you think about this? So, as we go through winter, and we have the doldrums of the cloudy days, and we have the wild swings of Midwest weather, think about how you can be a mentor. Think about how you can reach out to somebody that might benefit from your experience. Or be prepared when somebody does ask for your help. I don't know. That's just me riffing away here in my Terra level executive suite because it's too cold and windy to be pondering on the patio today. Thanks, everybody. I really appreciate the likes, the follows, and I've said it a couple times, and I think about my friend Ryan Martin when he said it. If you listen on Apple and you're not following me, hit that subscribe button. It does things in the algorithm that I don't understand, but they're supposed to be good for me. And if you're walking around the Fort Wayne Farm Show next week and you see me, stop by, give me a high five. Don't be surprised if I put a microphone in your face and ask you some questions. Thank you, everyone.